Hey guys, today I want to show you a little exercise that I'm doing that is going to help you to draw with form, I think. And I kind of stumbled upon this by accident and figured, hey, actually what I'm doing right now in this project would actually possibly help some people if they tried to replicate it and do something similar. And essentially it's like drawing a squiggle, some kind of shape, and then from that fleshing it out to make it look like it's got some volume to it. So I've been just drawing these random blobs like this. Well, first of all, they're at different stages. So you can see this one's at quite a developed stage, this one's at a developed stage, and then some of these ones are less developed. You can draw them as rocks, you can draw them as, in this case, they're actually like kind of distorted cells in the body, so like kind of microorganisms that have gone wrong and are a bit distorted. So I'll just show you, like, basically I use the cool thing about animation software is it allows you to make a lot of drawings very quickly, because you can just arrange a bunch of blank keyframes like this that I have in the timeline. I'm going to minimize the timeline now, and I just walk through. I'll do one shape like this, and this is just kind of an instinctive shape. I will add a little bit of variation in my line and create a random shape like that, and then I just step onto the next one and I do another one, and this one will be different. And I might not like that shape, I don't like what I did there, but let's say if I change it like that. But like once you draw a line, then you can think about how to improve it. You see here where the line doesn't quite join up. I'm just neatening that up so it makes a closed object. Let's try one more. Okay, so I like drawing in animation software because it allows me to iterate very fast. I don't have to just draw something once and that's like my prized possession, and that's the only one, and I can't mess up, can't make mistakes. I can make a bunch of these and choose the ones that I like the most. So every time I'm just stepping forward on the timeline, so you can see here I'm just stepping forwards and backwards. Then I'll revisit them later and I will assess which ones are the best and which ones I shouldn't use. That's quite an interesting one. And I'm just allowing my hand to do what it wants to, in a way. I'm kind of using the muscles and I'm in my hand to decide, and I'm also doing it quite fast. So it's one continuous line at speed, and that's where you create these gestural curves. Not really thinking about it too much. I will think about it when I edit. So I will edit these and select the best one, and then I will give form to that one. So just starting off by drawing a bunch of shapes. If there's something in your conscious mind that you think, okay, I want that to be different, then you can. Okay, I'll leave it at that. So these are the shapes that we've done. I've done a bunch of others here already, so that this kind of gives you an idea of what it can look like afterwards with some hatching and adding these extra lines, which we'll get into. This is another example. So yeah, creating random objects. So we started with this outline. Now we have a kind of silhouette. This one is okay, but it's a little bit featureless. So let's move on to one. We're moving through. Let's see, this one's a bit too jagged, but we could use these. There's obviously this kind of diagonal structure to it, where it seems to want to have these lines coming across. So maybe I'll just develop that out a little bit. And what we're doing here is we're just cutting into the silhouette. And as soon as we do, we describe it further. We describe the form. These bits here, you see, that's kind of an instinctive, like, I've come to the end there and I'm starting a new section of the line, so that's a section, that's a section. But here I need to neaten that up a little bit, so I'm just gonna going there because it doesn't make sense with the form. So anyway, yeah, once you've got the silhouette, then you can put these lines in, and you don't have to think about them too much. You can kind of, you see where there's like an indent here, so it's going in. That's an opportunity to describe the feature. It's also an opportunity to have this, you see this outline here. Right now it's just one line with not much variation, but you can take a little inlet like this, a little feature of the silhouette, and you can change the line width by just adding more line onto it. Here as well, change the line width, and this automatically, you see how this just makes it more appealing already. It makes it it gives it suggestion for the form already, just by doing that. And here as well, we've got it's just a gentle inward curve. I can just add another line to it here, like that. Okay, we can try some interesting things now with this. I'm not sure if it will work, but I'm not thinking about it too hard here. Let's see. This bit I'll keep flat. You kind of want to have intersecting areas of rest. So there's areas of intensity and there's areas of rest. The rest parts are kind of blank. So this part I'm going to keep fairly restful, and then there are going to be areas around here. This is going to have some intense detail. And that's kind of moving into like design territory. See, design is all about those ratios of intensity and rest. We're also thinking about how we can add faces to this. So these little squares and things, these I'm imagining them as faces. So yeah, those faces can kind of describe it a little bit better. And we're staying within the silhouette. The silhouette is helping us. It's giving us clues as to what we can do with the space inside. Okay. Add another one there. Do something in here. I'm going to actually edit that silhouette to be a little bit more biting there, using random words here to describe a feeling. Here I'm just going to zigzag and see what that does. Give it these, on rock formations you call these striations. So that's kind of made it more interesting, hasn't it? And you can do these, you can work these into your illustrations, into your backgrounds and things. If there's like a rock on the floor or a tree, you know, tree bark and things, they will it will look much better if you are able to describe the form, and add detail and design it to have interesting complementary areas of rest and areas of intensity. Let's try another one. This one here gave us a major clue here. We've got this nice sweeping gestural line here. We don't want to break that gestural line. We're going to keep that line intact because it's very pleasing on the eye, how it's smooth like that. But then it juts into this larger form here. So this is giving us a bit of a clue. And I'm going to now kind of hatch the line, kind of feather it by just working with the pen, using my muscles to just you know, I'm angling my hand right now. I'm going to actually do it again. I want to just get it right. So I'm going to maybe do two like this. I'll just do another one here. So it's not as overt as a line. It's slightly less of a line, but it's kind of hinting at where there is a difference in the topology, I suppose. Sorry, I'm using a lot of weird words here, but it's because some of this stuff can get quite abstract. Okay, and I feel like we're just going to put in some things here. I feel like there's might be a dividing line here. we break up the larger forms with into smaller forms. And then if it calls for it, if the situation calls for it, we can actually improve these. We can break these as well. So I could do that and create a more of an inward curve. That's another thing that's nice in designs, is when you've got a combination of outward curves. So this would be an outward curve, and then this would be an inward curve, and you can alternate between the two. So you can have sort of inward and outward curves of varying length, and having that variety of length adds visual interest as well. So here we've got an outward curve, and then we've got an inward curve. It doesn't have to follow a pattern. It can be two outward curves followed by two inward curves. But varying them, having some variation here between inward curves and outward curves, is another thing that's quite nice to do. Can look quite pleasant, and that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to pack detail into this. We're trying to describe the form, describing the form as in imagining it as a three-dimensional object, where before, when it was a silhouette, it described itself. It looked a lot more like a two-dimensional object, or just a singular line that's wrapped around in a way that meets. These are examples of how you can do more of these hatched lines. I can be a bit more confident on this, I think. And you see how I'm varying these curves to try and wrap around the form. The line itself is not important. It's where the line is and what it's doing in relation to the silhouette. It's describing here a volume that's coming out at us. And that's a game changer if you're able to do that. I'm not doing it that well here, you know. I'm kind of, maybe this is like becoming a texture like fur or something, because of the way that I'm using these lines, and they're all going in a certain direction. They've got these directions which is kind of sweeping across, but it is now suggesting more of a three-dimensional object as it was before. This is kind of more of a flat plane, and this here is like a kind of, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, and this thing is fitting into this. So that was an interesting silhouette right from the get-go. This one's quite nice because in my head I'm seeing this as like, we've got this large form here, and then we've got this smaller subform here, smaller, and because there's difference in scale, it's quite pleasing, I think. But again, we're going to use these gestural lines. This feels like a spherical form, so we'll just continue that along. We'll create a thing here which is the kind of divider, because there's another form here. So there's a small thing here which is quite nice, and I'm just going to put some detail around these dividing parts here as well. You see there's a small inward part here. I'll just take that away and make that its own thing. Yes. Here I might actually break into this silhouette here, and you don't want it all to be curvy all the time. I think there are, well, you can, but I think there are some really nice strong designs which have a combination of like smooth curved lines and then quite harsh lines. These are quite biting harsh lines here. I can vary the line width as well. I can use the eraser. Remember, you've got the eraser. The eraser is a tool. It's not just a way to undo mistakes that you've done. It's also a way to create negative space. So you can use the eraser to shape and sculpt what you're drawing. Okay. And sometimes with a big volume like this, you just need like one line to help, or like one or two lines. You see, something like this would just help to and you've got to get the line right though. It's got to have speed, and it's got to wrap its way round the form. So here I'm actually trying to do the line that wraps around, but you see how I'm starting this part of the line here. This would actually be behind, but it helps for me to do that. It helps me to start behind the form and then work my way around and wrap it round like that. And I can always delete that later on, and then that gives a more convincing form line, a kind of cross section of this spherical egg kind of shape. Okay, yeah. So this is very much drawing from imagination, and there is a subconscious element to it, but it also follows a process that you can see. So I'm taking away these little bits here. Again, identifying from the silhouette where it's telling me to create these lines, especially paying attention to these inverted lines that are biting into the shape. Now, I think organic forms are a little bit more tricky than non-organic forms. So if you want to, you can start off by, if you've learned how to draw the cube, you can start off without these curve shapes and go with just kind of cubes on top of cubes, like intersecting cubes. And I've done plenty of exercises like that in the past, and this is a nice starting point. But if you're going to depict organic shapes, then I think progressing onto curves is really good. Feathering those lines again, creating these cross hatches, and you can kind of stray these cross hatches into these kind of parts, and might make this a bit more fractal here. And I don't really have a good idea for what this part is yet, this form, so I'm just putting lines down, and it's kind of like trying something by putting the line down, and then after you've put the line down, then you make the decision of whether to keep the line. And you can always Control Z if you don't like it, you can always erase if you don't like it. But you can't edit something that doesn't exist. Once it's on the page, then it exists, and then you can edit it, and you can improve it, you can take it away, you can add. So the important thing is putting something down. And you know, I started with something very simple, which was just doing something like that with you know, creating a silhouette. Hey, look what that looks like. But or is that just my imagination? Anyway, yeah, there's another thing we can do here, which is like, if we want to, we can express tone. So we've got an area of we've created an area of shadow here, and I could now define the tone, create the darkest point of that area of shadow. So now we have 3 tones. We have light, we have medium, and then we have darkness. And that creates an extra dimension to it. I wasn't actually going to get into that here, but that seemed like a good opportunity to. You can do that with hatching. And this is all just using a single brush, well, a kind of line, a sketch brush. You don't have to go into anything else right now. In fact, I would invite you to not go into anything else, and to just use a simple tool to do this, and not switch between tools. Okay, well, anyway, I'm gonna probably leave it at that for this demonstration, but this is about drawing random objects with form, you know, inviting form into the silhouette so that it's no longer flat. You see, if we took this, let's take this, copy to brush, put a duplicate there, and now let's take away this detail inside. So you see, this looks flat, and this has volume. You can see it quite clearly, and we don't even have tone on it yet, but we could add a little bit of two-tone, you know. Could just do, like, imagine that it's lit from one side. Deciding where that could go, but you know, just creating that divide between light and shadow, that will do more. And then from there we can add more tone. There's usually sort of this darkness right on the edge of the shadow, and when you put that in, it's like, ooh, that looks nice, because that's about bounce light. You see, so the rim here will have some bounce light coming in. Yeah, adding those cross-section lines, you can cross-hatch and kind of feather those lines into lots of small subtle lines where you think it shouldn't be a solid line. You see, some of these lines, they're like a statement. They're like, this line is definitely here. And then some of the lines you might want to be like, this line is kind of here, it's subtle, and for them you can just do that. You see here, this is kind of like joining these forms, and it's kind of integrating them. Also, lines always have the opportunity to show direction and energy with any line. So this line has direction, that's the direction. And also there's opportunity for volume. So this, you know, as we discussed earlier, this is kind of like there's a force plus volume for this line here. That indicates a volume. It indicates a kind of a bulge, and there's a force. It's kind of like the force is being applied to it. There's something that's moving the center. You could identify that as the center, and there's something that's pushing the center of this outwards, and there's a kind of gradient that ripples through this form. You see, it's being applied less here, and it's being applied the most in the center. So that all comes from just one line, like this. Anyway, I just got carried away there. I'll probably end it there. I wonder if there's any more wisdom that I could give on lines. I think that's it for now. If there's another one, I will make another video. Alright, see you in the next one. Okay, now that I've demonstrated this exercise to you, I'm going to set you a challenge. So the drawing exercise is to basically do what you've seen here. Draw 10 different silhouettes from imagination. So start with the silhouettes, just an outline of a blob. You can do it at speed like I did. That should take you very little time. Make it an outline silhouette that you like, that you enjoy. Something about it is pleasing to you, if you can. But yeah, just try different ones. And then once you've done that, using lines, just lines, develop those silhouettes into shapes with form or with volume, as some people might say. Just like you've seen me do here, sort of cut into those silhouettes with using the same line tool, whatever line tool you're using, to give it the indication that it has three-dimensional form. And then if you want to develop it further from there, you can do a shading pass like you saw in the last demo. You can create a division between light and shadow to really finish the effect and and make it look like an actual object. Here I've made them look like kind of either like microorganisms or like precious gems, I suppose, like crystals, and that can be a really nice thing. But if you've got your own idea for what you want to do, if you want to go even more advanced and make it into maybe like a mechanism, like clockwork mechanisms or something, you can go off and try that as well, whatever your style is. And yeah, I think you're going to find this really satisfying, really fun, and rewarding, because I did. All right, well, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.